You love football because of moments like this. A single tiny flash of chaos that ripples through an entire game, a season, even a paycheck. Late in Thursday night's game, with the score tight and the crowd on its feet, Jared Goff throws a completion, and seconds later, James Houston buries him. A 15-yard roughing the passer flag turns a huge defensive play into a drive that ends with a Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown. The Lions win. The Cowboys lose. And now that hit might cost Houston a fat fine. The NFL's disciplinarian is watching, and the league has been in a zero-tolerance mood for hits like that. Let's be honest. The play felt ugly on the field. It wasn't a clean textbook sack where the body position did the talking and rules were respected. It was late. It was emotional. And it came at a critical moment, with Dallas trying to keep its playoff hopes alive. The 15-yard penalty didn't just move the chains. It swung momentum, set up points, and probably cost the Cowboys a game they could scarcely afford to drop. This is what the NFL is doing now. Protect the quarterback. Penalize late contact. Fine repeat offenders more severely. The math is blunt. A first-time hit like Houston's usually nets around $17,389. Repeat offenders pay more. The league has already collected hundreds of thousands in similar fines this season. The message is consistent. The quarterback is sacrosanct, and the rulebook will be enforced even when the hit looks like football to you and me. But here's the part that's always messy: the human angle. Defensive players are wired differently. They live for that moment of violence, the collision that tells a story in 2 seconds. For a pass rusher, getting late contact on the quarterback sometimes happens in the heat of the play. It's split-second judgment. Do you wrap up or finish the throw? For a defender who spends every snap chasing dreams and sacks, being told to dial it back is sometimes the hardest thing in the world. Still, rules are rules. The NFL's crackdown is partly about optics. Very public, very viral hits fracture the league's image, and partly about player safety. Protecting quarterbacks doesn't just help marquee stars, it reduces head knocks, it protects guys who are in vulnerable positions after the throw, and it sets a standard for contact across the board. Whether you agree with the scope of protection is one debate. The enforcement is the other. Right now, enforcement is winning. What does this mean for the Cowboys? Short term, it's a stinging loss, and the penalty that came from Houston's hit was an avoidable gift to the Lions at a pivotal moment. Long term, Houston may pay a few $1,000s out of pocket, but the bigger price could be reputation. Repeat infractions change how refs call your future plays and can make you a target for supplemental discipline. The league watches patterns. One egregious hit is a mistake. 2 becomes a trend. For the team, discipline matters beyond the fine. Coaches preach situational football. Don't give away penalties in the fourth quarter. Don't hand your opponent free yardage when the game is tight. Those are the things that haunt teams in December, when playoff math is unforgiving and the margin between qualifying and watching from home is paper thin. A veteran defense knows that keeping your cool is a skill as important as rushing the passer. There's also a fairness argument on the other side. Fans and pundits will highlight how quarterbacks sometimes get away with pushing off, embellishing, or otherwise influencing a call. They'll point to times when defenders took much worse blows with no flag. That inconsistency fuels locker room anger and drives fiery post-game quotes. The league's job is to be consistent in principle, even if enforcement occasionally feels inconsistent to teams and viewers. Let's talk money for a second, because that's where it stings. The NFL's fine structure for hits on a quarterback is formulaic. First offense, roughly in the $17 range. Second offense, the penalty jumps near $23. Repeat offenders face steeper escalations. On top of league fines, teams can discipline players internally for conduct that hurts the team. Those dollars add up fast, and while elite contracts soften the blow, the principle matters more than the paycheck. Players want to play hard. They don't want to pay for the plays that cost wins. Now the narrative angle. You'll see 2 camps form overnight. One side will defend Houston, saying he was playing full-speed football and that the QB dipped into him or there was incidental contact. The other side will say the timing and nature of the hit were avoidable, that good pros know how to finish a play without drawing a flag. The league will review the tape, the fine will likely be announced, and then the conversation pivots. to coaches, to officiating, to Saturday morning shows, and takes that will age like milk in the sun. But there's a bigger lesson in all of this, and it's a coaching point disguised as a hot take. Awareness saves games. The best defenders develop an internal clock, a split-second sense of finish or don't finish. That clock is partly instinct and partly coaching. Teams that cultivate situational discipline, who drill late-game scenarios until they're automatic, lose fewer games on self-inflicted errors. That's why veteran captains in locker rooms stress control, why coordinators scream at film about giving it away, and why the small stuff becomes the big stuff in December. For fans, it's entertaining drama and painful reality at once. Nobody wants players playing soft, and nobody wants the game decided on an avoidable mistake. The true itch for the viewer is the gray area between those poles, the part that makes football visceral. The league will keep policing those edges. Defenders will keep pushing them. The flags will keep flying because that friction creates headlines, and headlines are what keep the sport oxygenated. So what's the final takeaway? James Houston's hit changed a game and may change a bank account. It's a tidy example of how one moment of aggression can translate into yards, points, and narrative momentum the other way. The Cowboys will replay that sequence and wonder, what if? And Houston will watch the league's determination with a mix of defiance and regret. The NFL will reinforce its rulebook, fans will argue on social, analysts will stack replays, and the game will move on to Sunday's slate because that's what football does. It forgives quickly and punishes precisely. If you want a closing thought to chew on, the best defenders are fast and furious, but the great ones are precise. They know when to close and when to hold, when to hunt and when to hurry. In December, precision beats fury every time. Up 30-27 with 8:24 left, the Lions ripped the Cowboys' playoff hopes open with a 29-yard pass to Jameson Williams, and then the game flipped on a single hit. Jared Goff throws, balls out, and James Houston barrels through the pocket and nails Goff a beat later. The flag roughing the passer. 15 yards, automatic first down at the Dallas 13, and 2 plays later, Jahmyr Gibbs punches it in to make it 37-27. Game tilt. Momentum killer. Season hurt. On the surface, it's an emotional football moment. Rush, contact, a veteran defender finishing the play. But in today's NFL, timing matters as much as force. The league has been unforgiving on late hits to quarterbacks. And this one checks the boxes scouts and disciplinarians hate. Contact after the throw that's late enough to be called and costly enough to change a game. Expect the league to hand down a fine in the neighborhood of $17,000 for a first offense, with penalties escalating sharply for repeat offenders. Why this matters beyond the sticker shock: football games turn on one play. That penalty didn't just cost Houston yardage on the stat sheet, it gifted Detroit a short field and erased what had been a real Dallas rally. In a one-score game late in the fourth quarter, the extra 15 yards was as decisive as any touchdown run. Context helps explain the likely outcome. The NFL's enforcement posture this season has been consistent. Protect the passer, limit late contact, and punish plays that look avoidable or retaliatory. So far this year, the league's fine ledger shows dozens of hit-on-quarterback infractions with total penalties in the hundreds of thousands, and the numbers keep climbing. Players who deliver marginally late but high-impact blows are getting ticketed, fined, and sometimes flagged into reputational headwinds. For the player, it's a triple hit: immediate team consequence, the drive, personal consequence, the fine, and potential repeating cost if he gets tagged again. For the Cowboys, it's a lesson in discipline. You can't afford the little mistakes when the margin for error is already razor thin. For coaches, it's an X's and O's conversation. Rush the passer, but finish clean. Teach timing, not just violence. There's also the appeals path. Players can contest fines and sometimes win reductions if the tape shows mitigating angles, but appeals aren't guaranteed, and the league tends to favor consistency over nuance. If Houston wants the fine reduced, he and the team will need a clear exculpatory frame. Was it unavoidable contact as the quarterback turned into the rusher? Was the hit within the normal course of finishing a play? Or was it a late blow born from frustration? That's exactly the narrow, slow-motion argument that gets replayed in front offices and arbitrators. At the end of the day, this sequence was emblematic of the Cowboys' night. Flashes of competitiveness undone by a handful of self-inflicted wounds. In Dallas's season-long ledger, this game didn't just cost them a win. It underscored how discipline and situational awareness matter as much as talent. If you're coaching up pass rushers, this is the tape you use to teach timing and control. Win the snap, win the moment, and don't give the opponent a gift that steals the game.